Coming up on episode 99 of the Behind the Back podcast, we go over preseason week 1 for both the Eagles and the Niners, who stood out for both teams. And then when we go to the Philly, we're going to talk about some major injury news for guys we should pay attention to and some major standouts to the Niners. I mean, what else is new? Everyone else on that roster is hurt too. So we break down what to look out for and who's been standing out lately. So with that being said, y'all, let's get it. All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben, the Jet Rets. Ben, you had a week off. Family was here. How was that?
It was great, man. You know, I haven't seen the parents for 9 months, so mom and pop flew out here, and we spent a week together. We did our album release, which our intro song there is like I said before, it's the song I wrote, and so we did that live, and it turned out phenomenal.
Yay.
It was a great week, man. Spent it with the great family, and it was a blessing, but I'm happy to be back.
Heck yeah, I'm glad that you had a good time. Glad everybody got home safe. That's good news. So let's talk some football. We're going to keep it light this week because we got a big episode planned next week for episode 100. And there's really, it's more just housekeeping stuff right now. Next week is going to be the official start of Predictions Week as our 2-part special that we've been doing every year. So let's just talk some training camp. We're going to talk about some Philadelphia Eagles first. So let's talk about the preseason games that happened. We finally got to see our guys in action last week, and the Eagles were one of the first games that played last Thursday. And it ended up in a victory, 34-27 against the Bengals. The Bengals played their starters in the first quarter of the game. And so Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, that whole offense was out there versus our second team defense for the most part. And obviously, we have guys competing for the first team slot in there, and I'll talk about that in a second. But overall, I think it was a really good game. It was a really entertaining game. And when we talk about the takeaways, obviously, I want to start with the defense before I highlight the most valuable player of this game. I think the defense, had its ups and downs. I think this was a great test for the cornerback 2 position. You got to see Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson out there at the same time going up against Jamar and T. Higgins, and obviously did not fare well. Joe Burrow was 9 of 10, had 2 touchdowns and 130 yards. So you can tell, how effective our corners were in this game. I think it was a little bit of rough sledding for Keely and Adoree, but I also think that Vic Fangio, I think in an effort to kind of see what they had, put them in some less than ideal positions and just said, hey, go try and win this matchup, right? So it led to Keely getting cooked a couple times, and he missed a bad tackle that led to a Jamar touchdown. And, it definitely, you understand that they're 2 of the best receivers in the league, but it's also one of the things where you're hoping that they could hold their own a little bit better. But, it's one preseason game, and I don't want to, dig too much into it, but the cornerback room is one of the spots that the Eagles are really trying to, get shore up. And the Eagles did trade right after the game for Jacorian Bennett, a cornerback from the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was also a draft pick in Keely Ringo's draft. He was the pick right before Keely. So it's interesting that they got both those guys in the building now, and he has a lot of good traits, and now he's finally getting out there and practicing. They had a joint practice today in Cleveland. It's Wednesday, August 13th, so they had a joint practice with the Cleveland Browns, and apparently he had one good rep, but then he got cooked on the other one, so he could have had a better day. So, the cornerback 2 position is still very much wide open, very much in the air. Adoree Jackson has taken the most of the first team snaps to start each practice, if that makes sense. So he's been the first guy to go out there more than the other guys, but we'll see how that changes if Jacorian gets in the mix at all. But that position is still wide open, and we'll see how that goes during training camp. So it was an first week for them. But overall, I thought the defense in general was great. Jahad Campbell had a great game. He dropped an interception. He had it literally in his hands. It was a tip drill ball. It was up in the air and he was floating. He literally got right under it, and it must have just squeaked out when he hit the ground. And you could just see the frustration on his face because you knew that's just like a cupcake opportunity there. So that was kind of a bummer. But overall, he had a great showing, and it's good to see him getting real action and hitting dudes, and he looks comfortable out there. So the overall for the Eagles, that's a great sign to see the first round pick out there. And
Yeah, I I watched that the highlight because I didn't catch that game at
mhm,
all. That was one of the days I was spending with the fam, but I did watch a little bit of the highlights, and that was one of the highlights I saw was just the tip drill, and I totally thought he was going to come down with it, and I was like, what? There's no way,
mhm.
but. It's being there and opportunistic and in the moment, and this is there's going to be more of those opportunities as preseason goes on, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So I think there's an opportunity for him still out
Yeah,
there.
heck yeah. Bill Barnwell broke down film of him after the game like he does with a lot of players. And he was really just highlighting how Jihad was really able to just shake a lot of guys off. Like he was throwing dudes off of him and just always at the ball. And that was really encouraging to see that he's just always around the play. So I think that was, again, great first sign for our first round pick. That's exactly what you want. And then the safety situation still, work in progress. Andrew Mckee was hurt and he missed. He didn't play the preseason game. Sidney Brown was getting first team reps to start, but Mckee is back receiving first team reps. So maybe in the second preseason game, now that he's here, we'll get to see how he looks and where they decide to put him and try him out there. So I was really happy with the defense. They went up against the first team offense. You kind of were just hoping that they could, muddy it up a little bit, generate some pressure. And they were able to generate pressure too. Our defensive front did good. Ty Robinson ended up with a sack. And, it was a product of a good stunt, and he was just left wide open. No one was able to stop him there. So that was he finished the tackle, and it was a great play. And he also broke down a play. He got through his guy so quick that and you see the tape of it. He got through so quick that he thought it was going to be a screenplay because he didn't, he thought he was just, they were letting him go, but in reality, he just cooked them. So that was really cool. So Ty was getting good reps in there too. So again, for the rookies, it was a really good sign on defense to see these guys and their talent just kind of show out a little bit. So overall, I was really happy. But then we flipped to the offensive side of the ball, and it was the Tanner Mckee show. This guy had he went 20 to 25, 252 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a tush push touchdown as well that made Jalen smile from ear to ear when he scored. Jalen had this proud dad moment behind him. Tanner Mckee was leading the huddle for everyone to start the game, and you just watch Jalen behind him, and he's just cheesing so hard. And I'm like, I love the relationship that these two have now, especially since he's one of the few quarterbacks that's been here with Jalen for the past few years consistently. And for Tanner, he looked calm. And it was the good part about this was that it was against most of the Bengals first team defense. And again, that's not a good look for the Bengals defense. When we talk about this team next week, the same problems might exist for the Bengals this year. If you're getting cooked by Tanner Mckee in this
Yeah.
second team offense of Philly, I don't know if you had any initial thoughts on, the Bengals just based off of that.
Joey's going to be in for another rough year of MVP numbers and no wins to show for it. If this is the kind of defense they're going to continue to put on display.
Absolutely. Yeah, they got a new DC, so obviously, there's still a little bit of a learning curve, but Shamar Stewart apparently is out there already trying to hurt Joe Burrow and starting fights. So, things are going things are going
That all right, look, that play I have to say, like, Shamar was already kind of
I
going
saw
down,
that,
and
yeah.
it's one of those moments where it's like, do you just eat the turf or do you like stay up on your feet? And it's a split second decision. I don't blame him, and it's not like they got into a fight right
Yeah.
there, but like 3 plays later they got into it, and I'm like, well, this is a boil over, of course, because you hit the franchise player.
Yeah,
So
exactly. One of the offensive line was like, "That's our hopes and dreams right there, dude. You can't be doing." I heard that. I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." But yeah, that happens all the time. You guys are just doing
yeah,
their job, and unfortunately, it just gets a little, a little hectic. Jihad had a similar case with Jalen where he got up real close, and some of the O linemen were like, "We get it, but chill. Like, don't touch number one."
yeah, we had a D lineman roll up on Purdy, and Purdy had to step out of play and like test his ankle out, and he's like, "All right, we're good." And everyone's like, "You better not have injured Purdy. Like it's just another
Like, this
guy."
is the only time we can't hurt our quarterbacks, guys. So yeah,
Dude.
but no. So it was great to see Tanner Mckee just shine. He's a gamer. Every game he's played, I don't think he's had a bad game yet. Like preseason or the times he stepped in, otherwise he's looked calm and consistent. And how to no, he's just not afraid to throw the ball to these guys. Like he made, Johnny Wilson had 2 great catches where he mossed a guy twice, and that's just Tanner Mckee getting the ball in the air for Johnny to make a play. And it's good on Wilson because he was kind of on the bubble this training camp. He really needed to make some plays, and he seems to have gotten confidence from that game. Now he's carrying that over. He had a couple good catches against the Browns in that joint practice today. So Johnny Wilson, I would say, is stock up for him. And another receiver that popped off was undrafted free agent Darius Cooper. And this guy was the FCS leader in receiving yards for a career. He has the most receiving yards ever. It was like over 3,000 receiving yards from Tarleton State. And he had 6 catches, 82 yards, and he made a couple sick plays. And, when we talk about the Eagles receiver depth for that, 4, 5, 6 position, there's a couple guys you can throw in there that are really starting to make a name for themselves. So overall for the offense, it was a good game. Will Shipley had a good game. The offensive line looked good. These young guys played really well. And it was good to see AJ Dillon back out there. He had that neck injury last year, and he was able to get out there and see some touches, and he looked good. So, if we have the running back room of Shipley and Dillon, that's good news. So overall, super happy with the game for the Eagles. Obviously, you get a win at home. That's also great. But super excited to see the rest of this preseason with these young guys.
I'm sorry, I got caught up because you said Tarleton State.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never in my life heard of Tarleton State University. So I had to do a quick Google search to see what NFL players have come out of there. It's not a lot of them. But I mean, there's some dudes. I mean, Walter Bryan, Derek Ross, James Dirth. He played for the Jets for a few years.
Not some high profile names.
Benji Franklin. No, like nobody of true value.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I like that there's some smaller college players kind of getting some run times here in preseason.
Absolutely. And Darius is a nice guy. Like they spoke with him after the game. He was extremely humble. Just happy to be here. Nice. And he talked about how hard it was for him to. Oh no, that was Jacorian Bennett. Or it might have been him. It was either him or Bennett. They were talking about how they were a JUCO guy. No, I think it was Jacorian. They were talking about how they're a small school guy. And or when he looked up the stat where like junior players who play in junior college, like only 0.4% of those players make it to the NFL, stuff like that. I thought that was cool. But the Eagles have some likable characters this preseason that a lot of the beat writers and the media are really starting to latch onto. So Darius Cooper is definitely a name to look out for a fringe guy who might have just played his way onto the roster. So, those were a couple of those standouts. And again, I was really happy with the Eagles' overall performance. They looked clean. The offense was running really well. Kevin Platula was calling plays for the first time. So this was a good chance to kind of just see him call plays and be smooth with the offense. So it was good. I thought a lot of good takeaways from it. So I was really happy to see it. Heck yeah. So when we talk about just, a couple more updates, the big news out of Philadelphia, that people were talking about the last few days is Landon Dickerson did go down on Sunday. They had the only public practice of the year that the Eagles like to do at the link. So they hosted at the link, bring the fans. It was over 50,000 fans there just for the practice. It was a really cool experience. But it was literally by one of the last drills in practice that they were running. It was an 11-on-11. Landon Dickerson, it looked like he got stepped on or he rolled back awkwardly, and it came out to a meniscus injury. Fortunately, the reports are saying that he avoided a major tear or any tears like that. So he won't need surgery that's going to keep him out for, the year. Right. But he will need time to recover. And, there's optimism that he just had surgery. And I guess it's surgery that's not going to take him a long time to recover, but more of just like they're trying to get him week 1. But I won't be surprised if he, maybe he's a week 2, week 3, start time for Dickerson. But again, avoiding major injury, having Dickerson out for the whole year would have thrown a huge wrench into the Eagles' plans. Because listen, we have this stacked offensive line, but we need the stacked members of this offensive line to make it go. So, Landon Dickerson is the heart and soul of this O-line in terms of the energy and the charisma he brings and how the guys lean on him, and he's just an awesome player. So one of the players you could afford to lose the least, but our backup right now is Brett Toth. And he has plenty of experience. He has played with the Eagles before and has played around the NFL. He has played with our guys, so he is a reliable guy that you can ask to fill in for Landon in the meantime. So that's the big news coming out of Eagles camp right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I really wouldn't be surprised if they don't push him back just because Brett's had that runtime in this offense. He kind of knows how things work. For that reason, you never want to rush back, knee injuries, anything knee related, right? And especially with the meniscus, because that can always just kind of spiral into worse and worse things. So just having that advantage of having Brett, somebody who kind of knows how this offense operates and has had some play time in the past, like that's going to be massive. I think that gives you guys that ability to kind of, feel out this timeline for his return and bring back Landon at the right time.
Exactly. And the start of the season is starting to look a little bit easier. So I mean, for at least for week 1. So I think we're
Yeah.
gonna see what happens with Landon. I agree. Like, if we don't have to rush him back, I don't see a reason why we should. I'd rather play it safe with him. We're going to be fine without him. We have played games without him. Landon does have an injury history. We always play a few games without him every year. So it is one of those things that he's a tough SOB. He's going to play through injury. So but there's no reason for him to play through something like this right now. He played through a back injury and a knee injury in the Super Bowl. And he was out for the first half of the conference title game before coming in and playing in that game too. So it's just like, I believe in Landon's recovery. He's a special athlete. I believe he's going to get fine soon. So hopefully that, goes, he heals up soon. And another guy to be concerned about, just to keep an eye on, AJ Brown has tweaked his hamstring today in practice. And he hasn't been or not today in practice, but he tweaked it recently. He was out there on the Sunday practice, but he hasn't practiced since, apparently. I think they're just being cautious. AJ does have he has a history of lower leg issues. And obviously we're not going to see him in the preseason. So I think it's just maintenance for now. And I expect him week 1, but you never, know with these lingering hamstrings and stuff like that, how that turns out. So that's a name to keep an eye out for the next couple of weeks will be AJ Brown. And we'll update you more on that when we hear more and how his status is. But, I think a lot of these injuries, they're being careful with guys for precautionary reasons here in Philly. There's nothing, there hasn't been like a major, oh man, we lost a key piece type of injury, knock on wood type thing. Outside, the closest one was the Landon injury. Outside of that, it's kind of been all systems go. And guys are coming back and getting reps now. So I'm feeling pretty good. So the vibes are good over here. They had a good joint practice. Jalen was, having a mentor moment with Shedeur Sanders today, where Shedeur Sanders came up to him and just, picked his brain a little bit. And Jalen talked about that a little bit and said, he wants to be that kind of guy who can offer up, his services as a mentor in the space. So that was cool to see too. A young guy like Shedeur, Jalen got a chance to rehearse some one-liners with him on like what he should say, to get the media to wonder what you're going to say next week type thing. So, I think it was good.
Jalen, how do you continue to just keep your poise? Do you have a mirror at home, Shedeur? Do you have a mirror? Just look in it and say something inspirational to yourself every day, and then take that to the media.
It works wonders, man. It keeps people guessing, keeps them on the toes. But yes. So.
No, I did. In all realness, though, I did think that was a pretty cool moment. Like, obviously, hope that Shedeur is going to be okay. It's described as an oblique injury, which those things can linger, which sucks. Hopefully it's nothing severe, but that moment of Hurts kind of driving him off the field in the golf cart, it was pretty funny to look at from an outside perspective and just kind of see, QB1 taking QB future maybe off the field and giving him some one-ups.
Yeah,
so
I think
it was a cool
I think
moment.
it's cool that from a Jalen Hurts perspective, I think it's cool now that he's reached that status in the NFL where guys feel like they can reach out to him and talk to him and pick his brain a bit. He's like that guy, and especially now that he's won the Super Bowl, I think there's a level of knowledge there, and experience that he can provide. So I think that's cool. I think that it's good to see, and I was happy to Shedeur won't be playing in this game because of the injury on Saturday, so that's a little tough. We're probably going to see more Dylan Gabriel this time, and maybe some Kenny Pickett. So we'll see. But in the preseason game, I just hope these young guys show out, stay healthy. That's all we can ask for. But that's the same for the rest of the team. Is just make it through the freaking dog days of training camp so we can get to this season and just go from there. But it's been a good training camp so far for Philly.
Love that. So any final thoughts on Philly?
No, I think we're good. I think we're sitting in a good spot. There's no major stories that are like, oh man, pay attention to the Eagles this year, which is great. It's like we're going for the repeat. Let's go for it again. We're just gonna treat it like another season. So I'm feeling good. So let's talk about San Francisco 49ers and their preseason game. They played the Broncos, and they did not win that game. They lost 30-9. But I think there was, when we talk about that game, it's a little bit different than the Eagles Bengals game in terms of the context. The Niners didn't play any starters on either side of the ball, and they just went with a lot of young guys. And they did the Niners defense did go up against the Broncos first team offense. So tell me, from you, getting that kind of information maybe, or who are some of the players that stood out to you in this game?
Well, I again, I didn't get to watch this game, but I did go back. I watched the highlights and I watched a lot of the breakdowns on the game. And it was interesting to me to hear that the Broncos were rolling out, a lot of their starters like that, and especially on the O line. Um, and and to me, that was kind of the most fun part about this whole game because obviously Mac Jones, he was the one who started this game for the 49ers. He connected early with Jordan Watkins 3 snaps in to deliver what would be the longest play of the day, going for 50 yards. That was capped off by Patrick Taylor Jr. Running it in for a 5-yard touchdown. So immediately you're like, well, we're able to sling the ball, we're able to get some run plays, like we're kind of able to make some plays here. Shortly after that, defensively, Chase Lucas blitzes from the secondary, forces Bo Nix into an intentional grounding in the secondary and in the end zone, and that forces a safety. And so, first quarter ends and it's 9-0, and you're thinking to yourself like, wow, you know, this Niners team who's running their second, third, and even some fourth stringers in there, is doing more than just keeping up with this, with this Broncos team. And it was promising in a lot of ways, and I'll get into some of those. But obviously, when the second and third and fourth quarter rolled out, the game kind of shifted when the Niners went a little bit deeper into their rotation, and that's kind of to be expected. Obviously, with the Niners having to lean on as many youngsters as they are right now, it's a big learning moment for these guys, and I think there was a lot of learning moments throughout this game. But yeah, that was kind of like the biggest takeaway that I wanted to focus on today, where I'll get into my takeaways here in a minute, was that first quarter and just ultimately what I saw from both sides of the football, but actually really from that front seven. So you were able to catch a lot of that game. And I'm going to lean on you a bit here. What did you see from like the second, third, and fourth quarters that maybe, I might not have caught, or was there anything else that kind of stood out to you?
I think what stood out to me the whole game was Robert Saleh's ability to just be creative and try different things. And I think that created a level of chaos throughout the entirety of the game that, really helped a lot of these Niners defenders kind of take their lumps and also, learn a lot in the process. And, you heard a lot of things about like Nick Martin. He was playing like his hair was on fire, but he was missing a few plays. But, Saleh commented and said he was doing good. You got CJ West. He was, learning a little bit too. I was really happy with that. And the offense was not doing this team any favors in the second half of this game, second quarter on. You said they had that 50-yard bomb from Mac Jones to Jordan Watkins early, and that was, I want to say that was like the only time they got to the 50 after that, dude. Like I think they only had 54 total yards from that point on offensively. So the
Yeah, it was
offense
bad.
wasn't doing the defense any favors, but this gave a ton of reps to the defenders, and I do think that it was really just them just trying to find their spots and create chaos. But I just like, it wasn't a bore to watch the defense because you got to see kind of what Robert Saleh is going to be able to implement and what kind of tricks he has up his sleeve. I think it's a little bit refreshing that he's kind of saying, I don't care who sees, because this is on national TV. Some of these guys save it for joint practices, right, where no one's really watching. But like Robert Saleh is like, I'm going to try everything here, and I don't care because I know once I get my guys here, my starters, it's going to be different.
Well, and that's kind of the thing too, is you 100% can assume that he hadn't gone all the way into his bag. Like, he showed you some tricks for sure, but that bag is real deep when it comes to his knowledge and kind of, the way he schemes things up. But that was, we're going to start with the biggest takeaway for me, which was that front seven pressure and a lot of that defensive look that we got from Rob Saleh. That 49ers second unit D-line looked damn good against that Broncos starting O-line in that first quarter. And throughout the game, notching 2 sacks, a fumble, that early pressure that they were applying on Bo Nix, that was all Saleh. Like, you can say that, guys were running around and making plays. That's absolutely the case. But there was so much scheming that went into the confusion with the disguise looks, the overload blitzes, the weak side things that he was showing Bo, that he was lost out there. And that's a quarterback who started essentially all last year, if not all last year, for the Broncos. So this is a quarterback who, he's not a veteran per se, but he's not a rookie anymore. He's gotten reps and he's seen some good teams and he's seen some bad teams. He has seen time. So to be able to to pull Bo out of his element, and obviously it's preseason game one, but to be able to do that, I think is a really promising thing, and something that you can say is expected with the return of Saleh, but it's something that, like, as Niners fans, we gotta kind of hold on to right now, because this could very well keep us in running the season as our offense kind of figures out these health issues.
No, absolutely. And I think that, again, the schematic, like you brought up, like the scheme that Rob Saleh brings, like a lot of those pressures were created because they're stunting and having guys move around, or he's
Yeah.
showing, a lot of guys and he'll have guys bail out. I know he had one play where he literally showed all 11 guys just lined up right up in the front, and then, got Bo to have that safety. And again, this is, the Broncos and Bo Nix, they're not a pushover team. This is a team that's expected to be a contender this year, because everyone's
Right.
expecting them to take a huge jump in year two under Bo Nix and Sean Payton. So for you guys with a, not your starting cast here to really go out there and kind of muddy up the picture for him, that does say a lot about Saleh. And I really liked how you missed, like, it's one of those things that, like, you can just watch it and you can tell how different the Robert Saleh experience is versus like the Nick
Mm-hmm.
Sorensen, and I forget the other guy you had there the year prior when you guys made it to the Super Bowl. But
Mm-hmm.
um, there's just, and the way, like, the energy he brings, the way that he can connect with the guys. I was like, he's on the field celebrating. I'm like, this is the guy. I was like, this is the guy that Niners Nation needs to be excited for him to come back. You guys are back to. You guys can feel that you're going to go back to your old ways of your front seven just destroying the game and taking so much pressure, because that's what happened. Like, the defensive front generated pressure and made Bo's life difficult, and even the throws he got off, they were because of the pressure, and the back seven was able to adjust thanks to the pressure that the front seven was creating for him. So I was really excited to see that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this season, and I'm looking forward to essentially what uh anything and everything that Rob can teach a lot of these young guys, because there's so many youngsters on this team, especially on the defensive end. And I'm excited now to see, with all these pieces that the 49ers have, and with this bolstered D-line that they really made an effort to bolster throughout this offseason. I'm excited to see the effect of Rob on that. And that's, like I said, this is my biggest takeaway from that game. I'm going to shift over to my last two takeaways, which the last one, I won't do this one first. I'll do it last, because the last one has a little bit of a downside to it. So I'll start with cornerback Chase Lucas, who I did mention, who forced that safety early on in the game. He was all over the field against the Broncos. He led the 49ers in total tackles with 8. He had a great pass breakup and notched a safety. Like I said, he was all over the field. He was making plays where we were asking him to. And I'm excited to see more of him as preseason continues, because this is a guy who, in every opportunity he's gotten throughout his NFL career, and any opportunity in general, he tries to make the most of it. So this is an opportunity for him to step up with a secondary room that, while it's ironing out, it still has some questions in it, and there's absolutely room for depth. So he could be a key piece to that, and I think he's absolutely establishing himself as a name there.
Absolutely. I really liked what I saw from him. He was all over the place. Watching the game, he was bringing the
Beast.
energy. He was doing a good job. I really liked some Chase Lucas. I hope he gets a lot more run in the preseason.
I do too, and I think he's, for all intents and purposes, should get the majority of the run in game 2 and game 3. As I feel like he proved it, not just in training camp with some of the limited but really good plays that he's gotten, and then throughout this preseason game. I think you absolutely earn those reps, and you should be able to go out and prove yourself a little bit more in the next game. So we'll see if that's the case, but looking forward to more Chase Lucas. Now, my last one, like I said, it has a little bit of a downside, but I'm going to start with the positive. And that is, I love what I'm seeing and hearing of wide receiver Jordan Watkins. He has been a camp standout, and his play on Saturday was another reason to believe he is absolutely a player that Niners fans can expect to, this team to call on at certain points in the season. Watkins finished with 2 catches for 56 yards. Obviously, the biggest one was that 50-yard bomb. Offensively, they couldn't really get anything going, the Niners in general, after that first quarter. And a lot of that is because, Denver's defense in general is going to be one of the deepest and one of the better defenses in football this year. Unfortunately, and this is the part I don't like, Jordan is going to be sidelined for a month at least, rehabbing a strange circumstance high ankle sprain. He finished out his 39 snaps on Saturday and reported soreness in his ankle. Sunday, he gets an MRI and it shows a high ankle, which that's no joke. You don't play with those either. So he'll be sidelined for a month, which really sucks because that's another guy I wanted to see get extended play time and extended runs, especially in preseason. And I think it's absolutely a guy, too, that even with this injury, he will be a part of the 53-man roster because he absolutely bolsters that wide receiver room depth that the Niners are severely lacking in right now. So, like I said, I've loved what I'm seeing, and that bleeds out not just from the preseason game, but really from training camp. Everything that I've heard of Jordan Watkins has been nothing but positive.
Heck yeah, I love that. A lot of potential with Jordan. Hope he gets better soon. Obviously, high ankle sprains just sucks. The timing of it sucks too.
Sucks.
And it sucks with the coach that he has. Kyle Shanahan is a particular guy, and to lose valuable reps is just one of those things that going into the season now he just starts from behind again. And it just sucks that you always have to crawl your way back. That's the experience the Niners are getting with Ricky Pearsall. That's what they're about to experience with Jauan. That's what they're about to experience with Ayuk. It's going to be a lot of guys trying to come back to form. And this wide receiver room is in dire straits, and it's it bears a lot of question because it's not just the attention is on your wide receiver room because you have a $50 million quarterback now who needs to live up to that billing, but you can't if you're not able to help him by giving him any sort of supporting cast. The expectation changes. So this is really big news, and it's not just the wide receiver room; it's everywhere on this roster again, dude. And we talked about
I was talking to a buddy of mine. I don't know, like a week ago or so, and we were talking about all the injuries, and I'll read them off here in a minute that the 49ers have. And he's like, "Who is Brock going to throw the ball to?" And I'm like, "No, it's a great question because And he's like, "Well, what about George Kittle? Is George Kittle in for his biggest season ever?" And I'm like, I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because my homie that we do that I do the podcast with, he pretty much said he's on pace for it and should absolutely get it. But here's why I don't believe he would. Because the Niners didn't address that O-line the way they should have this offseason. And so you can't just say, George Kittle, you're going to go out there and you're going to get 10 targets a game. Nah, fam, we need you blocking because you're actually a damn good blocker. And that's, I think, a key piece to this is you didn't bolster the offensive line. You didn't give enough help. John Feliciano is out on Twitter saying, "Hey, John Lynch, give me a ring, bro, because I know you need me." It's gotten that bad. So as far as the Purdy targets and who he's actually be throwing the ball to, bro, let's talk about the injuries for a minute. All right. So let's start with that wide receiver room because we're on it. Brandon Ayuk, he's on the PUP list with the knee. Jauan Jennings, he's got the calf and a contract. We'll come back to him. Jordan Watkins, high ankle sprain. Demarcus Robinson has got the suspension right now that could be 4 games. It could be less. I think Kyle said they'll appeal it depending on what it is. Jacob Cowling's got a hamstring. So out of those guys, now all those guys are injured. Now you get into the healthy guys. Ricky Pearsall for now. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's so far your career hasn't proven that you've been able to stay healthy, and it's been unfortunate, and hopefully that changes. But right now you got to assume that that's probably going to change based on the injury luck of you as a player and the team you're on. So Ricky Pearsall right now is healthy. Then you got Russell Gage Jr., Robbie Chosen, Junior Bergen, Tariq Owens, Isaiah Hodgins, and today, now this is an interesting one. I do want to talk about this for a minute. Today, per James Larson, the San Francisco 49ers are signing wide receiver Malik Turner, or Malik Turner. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name yet, which is hilarious because he's been a Niner 2 times prior. His first stint was in 2022 when he was released semi-quickly after. Then he was signed again in 2024 for 2 weeks before being put on the injury reserve. And now he's back with the 49ers after a great season in the UFL. He finished the UFL season with Michigan, posting 365 yards, 4 touchdowns, exploding for 269 yards and 4 touchdowns in the postseason. So obviously he's coming off of like what is considered his hottest season in his, professional career. But again, bro, like we're signing guys who have these injury histories. And obviously we just put Equinemius St. Brown on the injury list as well recently. So it's like, and this is another guy who, you waived and then you got banged up, so you signed him again, and then he gets injured, so now you put him on the list. So it's crazy, dude. These injuries are getting wild, and that's just the wide receiver room. Like if you look up and down this roster for the Niners right now, there's injuries everywhere, and I don't want to get into the full list unless you ask me to, and then we'll be here another 45 minutes.
No way, just the key guy.
but what bugs me about this is, this is so many seasons in a row that you've dealt with these injuries, and I talked about it a few weeks ago. How many years, in the past 6 years have we been a top 10 most injured team? And in 2 of those years, we were a number 1 injured. And right now, you're the most banged up team in the preseason. So it's tough, but this is exactly where, some of these guys who come into the early stages of their career and they're asking for just an opportunity. This is your opportunity. And that's something I want to be looking forward to, especially with these joint practices with the Raiders and then that Raiders game as well. I'm going to be looking forward to that. A lot of these injuries, though, keep in mind, there's a long ass list, right? but the reality is not a lot of them are super long term. Like the longest term ones we already know about and we've already known about. You don't have any ones that are super crazy. The one to really keep your eye on is the Brandon Ayuk one, depending on when he comes back. And obviously that timetable is kind of narrowed down to what sounds like a week 6. So keep your eye on week 6 for his availability. But again, like how healthy is he really going to be at week 6? It's going to take him time to get back into football shape. We've talked about that so many times. So you're looking forward at this point to these guys kind of getting back on the field, as quick as they can, but also not necessarily rushing back. But on top of that, you're really looking at these youngsters and getting the runs that they otherwise might not be getting. And that's crucial to a team like this, who is on what I would consider kind of like a skip year. And this is a year where the aspiration obviously is to go for a Super Bowl, but it's not like it's been the last few years where that is the number one goal. The number one goal for this team is to develop and grow. And if they can do that, you're going to put yourself back into a Super Bowl window. So these injuries suck, but again, not a ton of them are super long term. But the other one is that Jauan Jennings one, which is a calf injury. We hate calf injuries here. We know those can turn into Achilles real quick. But how injured is he really? And that's the question that you got to kind of ask right now. And that's not to say that, he's copping out or anything like that, but you don't know what's going on because of the timing of it all.
Yeah, totally fair. Yeah, he wants the contract. Will he, like you said, is he playing? Is he not playing or not practicing while he potentially hopes and waits for a contract? But they said he re-aggravated the same calf from before. And knowing the Niners, I believe when they say someone is hurt, because it's probably true. It's like, but I got to think now, because we talked about it, right? We were talking about will they, won't they for a couple weeks there with him. Got to think that it's not going to happen. Like if he's hurt, if he's hurt, I don't see why they were going to pay him. They, the thing with him was like they did like extend him last year? Like they gave him the extension, and I know that, and I
Yes.
know he wants more guarantees, all that stuff. Like I understand that. But dude, like you're a good player. You're a good player, but if you are hurt, you've been hurt before, and being hurt isn't what gets you paid. Being available is what gets you paid. And given the state of the Niners right now, I don't think that's going to be on their top of their priority list to get done this year.
Yeah, and KMBR's Larry Krueger. He's a longtime Bay Area sports analyst. He pretty much told fans like buckle up and prepare for some action on this Jennings contract situation. And he was quoted saying they love him, but they don't want to extend him, and nor should they. I mean, let's be real about this. Jauan Jennings is probably the 40th best receiver in pro football, and he's being paid like the 42nd best receiver in pro football. He signed the contract last year, so you know what? Play or don't show up. But I mean, you're not getting an extension because you probably don't deserve an extension. And while that's like kind of aggressive,
Larry,
it's true in a lot of ways, and I look at it this way, like I'm in my job, in the real world outside of football, right? And outside of podcasting, and I'm doing a damn good job. They give me a raise because I asked for a raise, right? A year later, because Bob left and I had to step into Bob's shoes, I go into my boss's office and I'm like, hey man, like, I'm working like my stuff and Bob's stuff, and my boss would tell me like kick rocks, bro. Like you're not getting another raise. We just gave you a raise. It was a big raise. You got to give us a little bit more here for a little longer term before we can really do this. I'm not going to say that the same applies in pro football, but there's similar kind of things like that where it's like the 49ers did just give him an extension like that last year. And while last year didn't go to plan and it was a treacherous year, with raising a lot of eyebrows, one of the shiny parts was Jauan Jennings. So I get his timing and wanting to utilize this, but at the same time, bro, you just injured your calf and you lost all of your
leverage.
All of your leverage. So I have blinked on the word. You lost all of your leverage when that happened, and it sucks. But it's like that's kind of the reality of it. So I don't know that a Jauan Jennings extension is going to happen. I at this stage would assume it's probably not, but you really never know, especially because the 49ers, they haven't wanted to go, get Amari Cooper. They didn't want to go get Gabe. They didn't want to go and get, all of these other guys who've or are free agents who are out there. Their money, right? They're really good players, but they cost a lot of money. And the 49ers have shown they don't want to do that. They don't want to spend that money. So the question is, do you want to spend that money on your internals? And that's where, you kind of got to question if they're willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for Jauan, it's more now turning into a case of, hey, you have to show us a little bit more. And again, you had one good year. That was his best year by far, and he hadn't had a season comparable to that at all. So it is one of those things that I don't blame the Niners for, waiting and just letting this one play out a little bit. It's interesting that Larry Krueger would say that it's like there's going to be dramatics with it. I wonder if that is the case, if it's more Jauan trying to instigate and put the Niners on blast and try to make this a bigger deal than it is. And if that's the case, if it does get that bad, if he just asked for a trade, then what, So it's going to be, if it went from, oh, we're going to potentially re-sign him to, oh man, he's not going to be on this team anymore. That's just it's an interesting change based off of the kind of things that we've seen from Jauan lately. He just doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. But again, when it comes to millions of dollars, I mean, I wouldn't blame him for trying to get his bag. So it's an interesting one. And it sucks that,
well, especially when you see your teammate, 2 years prior get a bag by being a complete jerk the entire time. So I kind of get that.
I know. Yeah, that's the method, right? So it is interesting. And, the Niners being who they are and going with all these, dealing with the injuries and everything, they don't put themselves in a spot where and again, injuries are maybe out of their control. I mean, I wonder how much of the, the injury stuff is really on them. Like I saw this tweet from John Chapman, and this was from August 7th, and I was just curious because I didn't see this. It was like he's a guy who's was at the Broncos Niners joint practices, right? And he was like, by far one of the biggest differences between the Broncos and the 49ers warm-up is that the Broncos actually stretch. 49ers spend time doing dynamic warm-ups, but not a lot of static team stretches. And I thought that was interesting. And I wonder if it really is as simple as like these guys just not stretching, then is that a real thing? Like, I don't know, man. It was interesting.
So it is. I did some research because you sent that to me, and right after I was like, oh, did we just crack the code to why the 49ers are cursed and get all these injuries? I did a little bit of research, and it's also been a topic that has popped up around different podcasts and so on around San Francisco. The 49ers doing dynamic stretches and staying away from static stretches, they're one of the many teams who do that. Dynamic stretches are the most popular and most utilized pre-workout stretches in the NFL. So as far as their pre-workout routine, they're doing the right things.
Are they?
I actually am starting to wonder if the players are bought into stretching. And I know that sounds
right.
crazy.
No, for sure.
But it's like, how serious are you taking it, prior to you guys going as hard as you do at a 49ers practice? Because we know those 49ers practices are high intensity. They've always been. Kyle Shanahan has been known to lead high intensity practices, even when he's not necessarily supposed to. And that's something that I start to question. It's like, I don't know that I can question the training staff as much anymore now that we fired everybody and brought in a whole new training staff and have the same issue.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering, is it just not being enforced enough? How important this is to be stretching. And that's crazy to say. It feels like, because these are pro athletes. These are guys who have been stretching their whole lives. These are guys who, if you're not on the field making plays, you end up like a Jauan Jennings situation where you might miss out on millions of dollars. So you would think that would be enough of an incentive to, for these guys to put a little bit more into their workouts or their stretching routines. I don't think that it's a dynamic versus static is the reason why the 49ers have these issues, but I wonder if there's something else there.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think about the Eagles camp, and they operate so differently. Like they were to start the training camp period, they'll go for only hour-long practices, and they don't really like to do the super high intensity stuff. They more focus on situational drills and just working on those kind of fundamental things. And obviously tackling is a part of it, but they don't want to, hit each other, that aggressively and stuff like that too. So it is interesting, but again, I know injuries are always so fluky, and you can't just say that, oh, this way generates more injuries. But I would assume that the teams that play just a little bit harder than they have to this time of year would tend to see more injuries. But it's just an interesting topic. It is interesting that it's consistently happened for this generation of the 49ers for the past almost decade now. So it just begs the question of how could this keep happening to the same team consistently? Something is up, but I don't. And maybe one day we're gonna, 5 years down the line, they're gonna be the most healthy team, and there's gonna be something coming out that said, oh, in these parts of the Shanahan era, they were not this good, they weren't taking care of themselves or something like that. But I don't know what it is, but it's really interesting now. It's gotten more than just a coincidence or a fluky thing. This is now a data point for the 49ers, is that they're just an injured team all the time.
Bro, they had us questioning the weather, if the weather affected them. I was asking you, do you think it's because of the heat in Santa Clara because it's summertime? But then you see Tampa Bay and they're practicing in super hot weather, and they're not dealing with the kinds of injuries that, say the 49ers are. And even the Eagles had some really hot, humid, gross practices in there, but they were able to stay relatively healthy. So maybe it's a product of scheme, maybe it's a product of stretching, maybe it's a product of weather, maybe it's everything. I don't know, but it needs to stop because I need my guys healthy. I'll tell you
seriously.
Dude, there was a picture of Shanahan, bro. A day or two ago, he was doing a presser, he's got bags on his bags. Like
Already.
I don't think dude has slept in like 6 years. And to me, like I wonder what like the injury stuff and all this weight already on him before the season even starts. I'm like, bro, do you have it in you to get through the season? Like, are you gonna be okay? Are you gonna sleep well
He's
enough?
just gonna hand it off to Saleh halfway through the year. Like, dude, just give me a week off, bro. I can't even deal with these people.
It's the benefit of having another former head coach,
It's okay.
right?
Next year, you guys are going to get Mike McDaniel back in your building, and then Kyle Shanahan can literally take a break, a mental breather if he wants to, in the system once Mike McDaniel gets let go from Miami this year. That's a
That
big
would be
take.
This would be interesting. Yeah. So you like, what if Shanahan went full-time offensive coordinator?
Or
We got somebody else in the building as head coach. Saleh's, I don't know, like defensive coordinator. Mike McDaniels is like a consultant to the offensive side of the football. That'd be
Shanny's just
interesting.
like, take someone away to do clock management. Let that be someone else so I don't get shot on.
Or freaking rules management. Bro didn't know the OT rules.
He's like, let
Come
me
on
just
now.
run offense. That's all I want.
Oh my gosh, dude.
No.
Don't get me started.
Oh gosh. So no, I feel for y'all. The injuries are terrible, and hopefully, come week 1, you have a competent roster that's at least semi-healthy that's played some time together. And hopefully, the rest of the preseason you guys get through unscathed, or relatively unscathed. So that's the goal, hopefully.
Yeah, and wide receiver room is looking bleak right now, but the running back room, while Isaac Guerrero has a shoulder and Jordan James has a broken finger, there are still some nice names in there. Obviously, you have CMC who's looking healthier than ever per Kyle Shanahan and per his dad and blah, 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 blah. You have Patrick Taylor Jr., Keyshawn Vaughn, and Corey Kiner, and now welcome back Jeff Wilson Jr., who I'm ecstatic about. I love Jeff Wilson. I think he's an absolute beast. Obviously, playing the 2 years away from the Niners, but then able to come back. I'm excited to have him back, and he bolsters that room, which might be heavily leaned on throughout the season, depending on how this wide receiver room looks. But again, like I said previously, a lot of these injuries aren't super long term right now. If you can manage those, get back to somewhat of a healthy standing prior to week 1 of the regular season, I think, the 49ers, like I said, with the schedule, it's got a super forgiving side to that schedule. You've still got a chance to, get back to extremely full strength come the end of the season, when hopefully you get, a Brandon Ayuk back in full shape and so on and so forth. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it does look like now that the Niners, room for error has increased a little bit, given news in your own division with Matt Stafford, dealing with that back injury that you brought up a couple weeks ago, saying, hey, I don't know how good that's going to look, and maybe that's going to contribute to their issues. And, Matt Stafford, they thought he was going to be throwing as early as this week, but that's not happening, according to Sean McVay.
He couldn't even participate in walkthroughs the other day, or today or the other day. Like, that's not
They
good.
got him in this futuristic looking, truck thing that's like I don't know, what a wellness chamber basically is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
So that he's basically at during practice. So yeah, that's a little worrisome for your 37-year-old quarterback. So I just think that, that the Niners, have a little bit more room for error, and maybe it won't come down to needing to sweep the division this year in order to give yourself that room. You know what I mean? So it'll be hopefully it'll be better as you guys move on.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see.
Do you have any final thoughts before we go out here?
I'm excited for this pregame, or this preseason game against the Raiders, because preseason games against the Raiders, especially like last year in particular, they go down to the final play and it's always electric. And it feels like we just never play the Raiders in the regular season. We're only going to play them in the preseason ever. So I'm excited for the game, and I'm curious to see kind of who steps up in this game. But ultimately, that's my standing with.
Do you guys think you're going to shut down Genty, just like he got shut down week 1?
I really do. I do think that, he's not going to go for -3 yards like he did, but I don't think he's going to have, a massive game per se. I think, he might break through a couple times, but I believe in that, front seven to and especially the scheme to really kind of keep him in handles.
Yeah, and that'll depend. I didn't do any research on whether or not he's actually playing. I don't know. All these teams do different things in the preseason, but he didn't play last week, so if he does play this week, then yeah, I'm excited to see that too. But yeah, then you get to watch some preseason, get to get a feel for some of these younger guys and see what happens. And yeah, I'm excited for you guys too. That's going to be a fun game. I know it'll be fun. Is it at Vegas or is it?
Ooh, that's actually a good question.
I want to make sure because last game was in SF, right? Yeah, it was at home.
Last game was in SF.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, at Raiders.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that'll be fun. Play on the road, going to Vegas. That'll be a good place to, practice and be for the week. So that's cool. I'm excited for them.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? One last little thing. If anybody has ever watched, I don't know if you have, but anybody listening to has watched Richard Sherman's podcast.
Oh,
it's a great listen. Yeah. But he recently just had Diamador Lenore on there, and Demo talked about how he wants to be one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, and just kind of like his mindset and everything going into his career in this season and so on. It's a really good listen, and I really do recommend listening and tuning in, because as somebody who was low on Diamador when he was, in his rookie season and making a lot of the mistakes he did, he's done nothing but prove me wrong since I went on this pod and talk crap about him. So he's a guy that I absolutely love to watch play, and he's just one of these like ultimate confident guys. So go out and check that episode out on Richard Sherman's podcast. I don't have the name of it, but if you look up Richard Sherman podcast, it will pop up. And it's a really good listen.
Yeah, and he also had Purdy on there recently too. So he had a good interview with Brock, and they talked about his whole top 10 thing. I did see that. I've been watching a few of Sherman's episodes. It's cool. Been watching some of that, and the Eagles guys, the Exciting Mics. I've been listening to some of that too, because they just had Kelsey on recently.
I haven't caught a single episode of that, but I've heard good
it's interesting. I like the guys that, when they get to talk to the Eagles guys, obviously it's cool perspective. And they asked Kelsey about, they're like, oh, the 2017 team that you were a part of, do you think, them or 2024? And he's like, objectively, I think that 2024, you guys were just such an unbelievable roster. But, if I have to pick, yeah, we're going to kick your ass. 2017 kicks your ass. I was like, all right. But, and I know, yeah, so it was cool. There's been a couple good shows out there. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah, no, it's good to see these guys get out there, and they're staying hungry. I like the way that the Niners players are talking about it and approaching this season. In all these interviews, there's a major chip on a lot of these guys' shoulders that they're trying to prove a lot of these guys wrong. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop as the year goes on.
And I will say, Taylor Swift going on new heights with Travis and Jason was hilarious. I thought she had a perfect rage bait moment where she was like, it's what every man in America or something wants to see right now is more of me, Yeah,
I saw that. That was funny. And Jason gave her this insane intro of everything she's ever done, and it took 2.5 minutes just for him to say everything. It was I haven't listened. I'm gonna listen to the whole thing here in a little bit, but I did see a few of the snippets from that, which is cool. So I knew the Swifties were going to show up and make it big. They were streaming. Over 1 million people were watching live at that time, which was crazy. So it just they have, Taylor Swift has that kind of power. So, and I know that anyone who's watching that episode is just they're going to, they're going to look for little tidbits, and we're going to hear sports on it. That's how it works. But, it's going to be, it'll be an interesting episode.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, dude. All right. So any final thoughts? Any more final thoughts before we head out here?
No, that was the final thoughts.
All right, guys. Hey, episode 99. It's done, right? We got big episode 100 coming up next week. We do our AFC prediction pod next week, so we're gonna lay down our takes, and we're gonna do something a little different this year. More of a competition standpoint this year. Ben and I are still gonna be picking, doing our weekly games, everything like that, but we're gonna set the predictions this year, and it's not just us going up against each other. We're going to use another template to see how accurate we can be this year versus other bracket predictions. So it's going to be fun, guys. This show is about to change in a big way here, and we are really excited for what we get to launch episode 100 with you guys. And just saw that we just hit 150 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I know right now relatively it could be labeled as small, but like every single sub that we get just brings us much more joy and excitement, and it just makes us more dedicated to trying to bring the best product possible. We're grateful for everybody who listens, and we've been noticing the rise in, the BTB fam. Like we're really excited for you guys, and we're working all the time to try to bring you guys something that's awesome and factual and informative and fun. And that's, we want to expand this show in a huge way. So shout out you guys. We're excited. We're going to give you something special for episode 100.
Yeah, exactly. And because this community is small too, we want to lean on you guys. So again, any feedback you guys ever have, recommendations or, inputs on what we had to say, how you think we're dumb for our takes, whatever it is, like anything to help grow our community and kind of help us there, we love and appreciate that kind of stuff because it means a lot. We're a small podcast, yeah, but we're trying to build something big here. And even if we get to something big, we're not going to shy away from our community. That's something that we'll absolutely have all eyes on at all times. So yeah, we appreciate all the love you guys have shown.
Exactly. And yeah, you guys motivated us to start doing more quarterback clips as we threw out a few more last week. If you haven't checked it out for Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, go ahead and criticize us for those too. I think, that series in general was an idea that you guys were like, oh, you should do this, QB, do this. And we're like, you know what? This is starting to turn into something fun. So please stay tuned. We're going to definitely throw more of that in there. And again, it's going to be a lot different here in year 3, guys. Like we're going to do a lot more different things. We're going to get more out there and really turn this thing into something special. So this was episode 99 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. For all y'all watching on YouTube or any video, all the links to our descriptions are up above. For all you audio listeners out there, links to descriptions are down below. Please give us a like, subscribe, rate, review, follow the show. Any comments you guys have, we appreciate all the love and support. So, as always, I am Marcos Conan Negron. Beside me here, as always, is
Ben the Jet
all right,
Rice.
y'all. We love you. We will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.